Number 3. India is qualified for a permanent seat. If it gets it, would not that increase the challenge faced by Pakistan, a nuclear power? Would that be in the interest of world peace? On the contrary, it would be a grave threat to world peace. Japan is also a candidate. If it gets a seat, would not that increase the challenge facing North Korea with its problematic nuclear situation? What about China and Indonesia? Would not giving India and Japan permanent seats lead the nuclear-armed China to a boiling point? Would that be in the interest of world peace? On the contrary, it poses a threat to world peace that is graver than anything it had known before. Number 4. When Turkey enjoys that right, who would be able to deprive Iran or the Ukraine of a similar privilege? This is a real problem. Egypt is also qualified for and deserving of a permanent seat. If that happens, what would be the position of its traditional enemy, Israel? Would it mobilize the Zionist lobby in America to strip Egypt of that right? This is an inevitable problem that would constitute a dangerous threat to peace in the Middle East. If the Council is thus expanded, who could object to Indonesia's claim for a permanent seat? This, too, is an inescapable problem. Giving any non-nuclear state a permanent seat in the Security Council is totally meaningless. It is a farce. It would be an act of deception against that state. The expansion of the Security Council would subject world peace to new dangers. It would ignite a Cold War that might well turn into a hot one. The world will be making a grave error if it goes down that path. If the purpose of the UN reform is to strengthen world peace and consolidate democracy, then it must focus on the transfer of powers of the Security Council to the General Assembly. This way, democracy will be achieved in the UN. The seats of the Security Council will lose their importance. The cutthroat competition on them will cease. Once again, I say it clearly. The peoples of the world must not be taken in by the lie that is put before them. What is on the table is the reform of the UN, not only the possibility or otherwise of the expansion of one of its organs, the Security Council. The United Nations is not merely the Security Council. The General Assembly is. The 190 member states are represented in it. The nations that united against Germany in World War II were only 4. They are not the current United Nations that is made up of 190 members. The 4 nations were free after the war to establish their own Security Council. They were free to do as they wished and to arrogate to themselves special rights through that council. Today, the 190 member states are the United Nations. They have a natural right to create their own Security Council, which is different from that created by the 4 nations that defeated Germany. The nations represented in the General Assembly have the right to exercise all powers through it. I stress all powers without exception because the General Assembly is the only organ that represents all the peoples of the world. It is the assembly of the 190 member states of the UN that has the right to constitute its Security Council in the manner that it deems fit for the achievement of its goals and the protection of its safety. This means that the General Assembly will be the international legislature and the sovereign international parliament. It alone will have the final say in matters brought to its attention. This is the essence of democracy in the World Organization. If it is not achieved on that basis, any talk of democracy and any call on states to adopt democratic systems will be nothing but a laughable farce that cannot be taken seriously by anybody. The correct and democratic solution is for the General Assembly, i.e. the 190 member states, to discharge all the powers enshrined in chapters 1 through 19 of the UN Charter. It alone should establish its own Security Council. The Security Council is only a tool for the implementation of the resolutions of the Assembly. If this does not happen, the UN as we know it would be doomed. We must prepare ourselves to live in a world without the United Nations. This question is of extreme importance to the destiny of world peace or war. Therefore, any decision about the proposals on the table must be deferred. The world leaders, intellectuals, and academians must reflect carefully upon all these ideas. They should avoid making hasty decisions that aim at nothing but pleasing some or appeasing others with given due consideration to the near or distant future. They must consider carefully the negative repercussions of any decision that they make. The matter is of extreme gravity. It deserves more than 1 year of study and analysis. The opinion of all the peoples of the world must be sought. They are the real stakeholders in this matter. The world will be heading towards self-destruction if it thought of expanding the Security Council while continuing to disregard the General Assembly as is the case now. There will be loud calls for the withdrawal from the United Nations. I will personally be the first to make such a call. I have delivered my message and my warning, as God is my witness. This statement is based on the preamble of the UN Charter and Article 109 thereof.